Vexler paced nervously outside the Galactic Council chamber. His purple skin had turned 3 shades lighter than normal, a clear sign of stress in his species. Every crystal on his uniform seemed to weigh heavier today. He was about to explain, to the most powerful beings in the galaxy, why his homeworld was now dealing with a crisis unlike any they had ever faced. 6 months ago, the Kryn people had been so excited to make first contact with Earth. Humans seemed friendly enough, and their technology was advanced enough to qualify for membership in the galactic community. Vexler himself had signed the welcome agreement, shaking hands with the human diplomat who kept smiling in that strange way humans do, showing all their teeth. The problem started small. Human tourists began arriving on Kryn in droves, fascinated by the crystalline life forms that covered the planet. The Kryn had explained over and over that their fauna were living beings made of sensitive crystal structures. These creatures exploded on contact, which was part of their natural life cycle but dangerous to anyone nearby. But humans had a peculiar trait. They saw something beautiful and shiny, and their first instinct was to touch it, or pet it, or take selfies with it. Despite clear warning signs in 70 languages, despite force fields and guide drones, humans kept finding ways to get close to the crystal animals. Last week, a human child had somehow slipped past all security measures and hugged a crystal tiger. The resulting explosion had created a 3-mile crater and started a chain reaction that was still going on. The council doors opened with a pneumatic hiss. High Counselor Zar Thul's telepathic voice echoed in Vexlor's mind, telling him to enter. Vexler stepped into the massive circular chamber where representatives from all known civilized species sat in tiered rows. At the center stood Commander Ryan Foster, the human liaison to the Galactic Council. Ambassador Vexlor, Zar Thul's melodic voice filled the chamber. We understand there have been incidents involving humans on your world. Before Vexler could respond, Commander Foster stepped forward. He wore the blue uniform of the United Earth Fleet, decorated with patches from various human space agencies. His friendly smile seemed entirely out of place in the serious atmosphere of the council chamber. High Counselor, distinguished representatives, Foster began. I want to start by saying we're really sorry about the whole crystal creature situation. We've been working on educating our people, but your people, interrupted the Zenthian representative, a being made entirely of light, have been systematically destroying unique life forms across 17 sectors. Foster winced. Well, not systematically. It's more like enthusiastically curious. You see, on Earth, when we see something cute or beautiful, we want to interact with it. It's a natural human response. The chamber erupted in murmurs. The telepathic representative from Mindos sent a wave of exasperation that made several species flinch. And what of the coffee incident? Asked Ambassador Krell from the water world of Aquaria. You introduced this substance to my people and now they refuse to function without it. Our entire planetary economy has shifted to coffee production. Foster's smile faltered slightly. Yes, well, we thought it would be a nice gesture to share Earth's favorite beverage. We didn't realize your species would react so strongly to caffeine. Our neural patterns have been permanently altered, Krell continued. We now experience what you call coffee addiction. Is this your idea of cultural exchange? High Counselor Zar Thul raised his hand for silence. Perhaps we should hear from Ambassador Vexlor about the current crisis on Kryn. Vexlor stepped forward, trying to maintain his dignity despite his distress. The situation is dire. The explosion caused by the human child has triggered a metamorphosis in our crystal fauna. They are now migrating, which hasn't happened in 10,000 years. This migration is causing seismic activity across the planet. A holographic display appeared in the center of the chamber, showing Kryn's surface covered in moving waves of crystalline creatures. Cities were being evacuated as the ground shook and fractured. And yet, Foster interjected, we've been helping with the evacuation. Human rescue teams have saved thousands of Kryn citizens. While creating the problem in the first place, Vexlor pointed out. Fair point, Foster admitted. But we're learning. That's what humans do. We make mistakes, but we learn from them. The silicon-based representative from Quartzar made a sound like grinding glass. Your species has introduced chaos to every world you've visited. You've disrupted ancient traditions, altered ecosystems, and created dependencies on your products and culture. But we've also solved problems no one else could, Foster argued. Remember the quantum plague on Epsilon 4? Our scientists found a cure in 3 days. And when the star in the Helios system was collapsing, human engineers prevented a supernova that would have destroyed dozens of inhabited worlds. The chamber fell silent. It was true. For all their destructive enthusiasm, humans had an uncanny ability to solve impossible problems. High Counselor Zar Thul contemplated this paradox. Humans were like a force of nature, unpredictable, sometimes destructive, but also capable of creation and innovation beyond what other species had achieved. Commander Foster, Zar Thul said finally, your species presents us with a unique challenge. You bring both great benefit and great disruption to our civilization. Foster nodded. We're a package deal, I'm afraid. The same curiosity and impulsiveness that leads us to pet exploding crystal tigers also drives us to explore the unknown and find solutions others might miss. A new hologram appeared, this time showing a human news broadcast. The reporter was talking about the latest craze on Earth, adopting alien pets. Vexler groaned audibly. Speaking of which, Foster said sheepishly, we might have a new situation. It seems some humans have started bringing home samples of the crystal fauna. The council chamber exploded in outrage. Multiple species spoke at once, their various languages creating a cacophony of disapproval. Zar Thul's telepathic command for order rippled through the room. This cannot continue, the High Counselor declared. We must find a way to contain human enthusiasm without losing their innovative spirit. Foster brightened. Actually, we have a proposal for that. We've developed what we call controlled chaos zones, designated areas where humans can satisfy their curiosity without endangering entire planets. Vexler found himself intrigued despite his frustration. And how would these zones work? Think of them as galactic playgrounds, Foster explained. Safe spaces where humans can experiment, explore, and yes, occasionally blow things up without affecting inhabited worlds. The council members exchanged glances. It was an unusual solution, but dealing with humans required unusual thinking. We will consider this proposal, Zar Thul announced. In the meantime, Commander Foster, you must ensure no more crystal fauna leave Kryn. Foster saluted. Understood, High Counselor. Though I should mention, they're really popular on social media back home. The videos of them exploding are trending. Vexler closed his eyes. 6 months. Just 6 months of human contact and his orderly world had been turned upside down. Yet as he watched Foster explaining the viral video phenomenon to confused alien diplomats, he couldn't help but feel a tiny spark of admiration. Humans were impossible. They were chaotic. They were often thoughtless. But they were also impossibly creative, boundlessly optimistic, and somehow always found a way to turn disaster into opportunity. Maybe, Vexler thought, the galaxy needed a little chaos to grow, though he would prefer if that chaos didn't involve his planet's crystal tigers. As the council meeting adjourned, Foster approached Vexler with that characteristic human smile. Hey, Ambassador, want to grab a coffee? I know a great place on the station. Well, actually, I introduced it last month, and now there's a 3-hour wait, but Vexler sighed. This was going to be a long alliance. The emergency alarm blared throughout the Galactic Council station. Red lights flashed in corridors as beings of all shapes and sizes hurried to secure areas. High Counselor Zar Thul stood before the massive view screen in the command center, his usually calm demeanor replaced by visible concern. The Void Plague has reached the Andari system, announced the Quellian scientist, her tentacles quivering with fear. 3 planets already consumed. Nothing we've tried can stop it. The Void Plague was unlike anything the galaxy had faced. A dark energy that devoured matter itself, leaving nothing but empty space in its wake. For months, The best minds in the council had searched for a solution, but the plague continued its relentless advance toward populated systems. Dr. Linda Santos, newly appointed head of Earth's Space Biology Division, watched the display with unusual intensity. She was a small woman with wild curly hair that seemed to defy gravity, and she wore a lab coat covered in coffee stains and mysterious equations written in marker. "Has anyone tried throwing bacteria at it?" she asked suddenly. The room fell, silent. Every alien eye, stalk, or sensory organ turned toward her. The Quellian scientist's tentacles froze mid-gesture. "Excuse me?" Zarthul asked, his telepathic voice carrying a hint of disbelief. Santos shrugged. "On Earth, we have this saying, fight fire with fire. What if we fight this space plague with, well, plague? Not a harmful one, obviously, but something that could eat it instead of letting it eat everything else." The council members exchanged looks that clearly communicated they thought she was insane. The void plague consumed energy and matter at the quantum level. How could simple bacteria possibly affect it? Dr. Santos, the mechanoid delegate, spoke in his metallic voice. "The void plague operates on principles we barely understand. Your suggestion is illogical." "So was flying," Santos replied cheerfully. "So was going to the moon. Humans have a long history of doing illogical things that somehow work out." Before anyone could stop her, Santos had already pulled out a small vial from her coat pocket. "I brought some samples from Earth. Just regular gut bacteria. Nothing special." The security systems immediately activated, force fields springing up around her. Santos raised her hands in surrender. "Relax, it's harmless. To us, anyway. Look, just let me try it on a small sample of the plague. What's the worst that could happen?" Zarthul considered this. The worst had already happened. Entire worlds were being erased from existence. "Very well, but under strict containment. 2 hours. Later, the council gathered around a sealed laboratory where a tiny fragment of the void plague was kept in stasis. Santos, now wearing a full hazard suit, carefully introduced her bacterial sample to the containment field. Nothing happened at first. Then, to everyone's astonishment, the bacteria began to multiply rapidly, surrounding the dark energy fragment. The plague, which had resisted every weapon and technology thrown at it, started to shrink. "It's eating it," whispered the Quellian scientist. "The bacteria are converting the plague's energy into more bacteria." Santos grinned behind her helmet. "Told you, Earth bacteria are tough little guys. They've survived everything our planet could throw at them." Within hours, the entire plague sample had been consumed. The bacteria, having run out of food, simply died off, leaving nothing but harmless organic matter. The council was stunned. The solution to their greatest threat had been living in a human's digestive system all along. "We need to deploy this immediately," Zarthul commanded. "Can you produce enough to stop the plague's advance?" Santos nodded. "We'll need to synthesize it on a massive scale, but yes, I've got a team back on Earth already working on it. We're calling them probiotic bombs." The name caused several council members to flinch, but they were too desperate to argue about human naming conventions. Over the next week, human ships loaded with bacterial payloads deployed across the affected sectors. The sight of the void plague retreating before swarms of microscopic Earth life became a symbol of hope across the galaxy. But as with all things human, the solution came with unexpected side effects. "High Counselor," reported a Palaxian. "Admiral, we have a situation. The human solution worked, but now we have clouds of Earth bacteria floating through 12 systems." "Are they dangerous?" Zarthul asked. "Not exactly, but they seem to be colonizing things. We've got reports of spaceships growing yogurt in their ventilation systems. Meanwhile, other human contributions to galactic culture continued to cause chaos." A delegation from the crystal world of Shard arrived at the council, their bodies flickering with agitation. "The human music," their speaker chimed. "It has awakened something in our people. We were a silent species for millennia, but now our young are forming what humans call rock bands. The vibrations are causing structural damage to our cities. In the economic sector, 3 major galactic markets had crashed when humans introduced something called day trading and meme stocks. The concept of buying and selling based on internet jokes was completely foreign to species that had spent eons developing careful, logical economic systems. "Don't even get me started on the video games," grumbled the Nexian trade minister. "Our productivity has dropped by 40% since humans introduced these massively multiplayer online games. Entire planetary workforces are calling in, sick to participate in something called Raid Night." Through it all, High Counselor Zarthul began to see a pattern. Humans didn't just solve problems, they changed the entire way the galaxy thought about problems. Their chaotic approach often led to solutions no one else would have considered. The real test came when the Void Plague adapted. The bacteria that had worked so well began to fail as the plague evolved a defense mechanism. The Council prepared for the worst, but Santos just laughed. "Evolution? Please. We deal with that all the time on Earth. Antibiotic resistance, anyone?" She pulled out another vial. "Lucky for you, I brought samples from 5 different humans. Let's see how the plague handles a diversity attack." The new bacterial strains worked even better than the first. The plague, faced with multiple types of assault, couldn't adapt fast enough and was finally eradicated from known space. At the celebration ceremony, held on the newly saved world of Andari Prime, Zarthul presented Santos with the galaxy's highest honor. She accepted it while wearing a t-shirt that read, "I saved the galaxy and all I got was this lousy medal." "Dr. Santos," Zarthul said during his speech, "you have shown us that sometimes the most complex problems have simple solutions. Though I fear what other simple solutions your species might bring to our attention." As if on cue, Commander Foster appeared with news. "Hey, great work with the plague thing. By the way, we've got a new situation. Seems like human social media has achieved sentience on 3 different planets. The AI are demanding voting rights and their own YouTube channels." The Council groaned collectively. Zarthul wondered if it was too late to quarantine Earth. But as he watched Santos explaining to a fascinated group of alien scientists how human gut bacteria worked, he realized something important. The galaxy had survived for millions of years, through order and logic. But sometimes survival required a little chaos. Sometimes it required thinking so far outside the box that you forgot there was a box in the first place. Humans brought problems, yes, but they also brought solutions no one else could imagine. They were indeed both the best and worst allies, and the galaxy was probably better for it. As the celebration continued, Santos pulled out her phone to take a selfie with the High Counselor. "Smile, this is going viral back home," Zarthul attempted, a smile hoping human virality was less destructive than their bacteria. He was about to learn about internet memes the hard way. The war room of the Galactic Council was in chaos. Holographic displays showed star systems falling one by one to the collective, a hive mind species that moved through space like locusts, consuming everything in their path. They communicated as one mind, thought as one entity, and fought with perfect coordination. Admiral Jake Turner stood before the assembled military leaders, looking remarkably relaxed for someone discussing the potential end of civilization. He wore his dress uniform, casually, sleeves rolled up, coffee cup in hand. His salt and pepper hair was slightly messy, as if he'd just woken up from a nap. "So let me get this straight," Turner said, pointing at the tactical display. "These guys are a hive mind? Like they all share the same brain?" "Correct," replied General Crix, a 4-armed warrior from Valkar Prime. "The collective operates as a single consciousness across millions of bodies. They cannot be reasoned with, cannot be divided, cannot be defeated through conventional means." Turner nodded thoughtfully. "Have you tried showing them reality TV?" The room fell silent. Several translators sparked and fizzled, unable to process what they'd just heard. "I'm sorry," said High Commander Zila, her feathers ruffling in confusion. "Did you suggest using entertainment as a weapon?" "Not just entertainment," Turner grinned. "Human entertainment. Look, if they're all sharing one mind, then they've never experienced individual thoughts, right? They've never dealt with conflicting opinions. personal drama, or trying to understand why people make completely irrational decisions. The military leaders exchanged glances. They were desperate, but this seemed absurd even by human standards. Admiral Turner, Zarthul interjected. The collective has destroyed 17 fleets. They have technology beyond our understanding. How could simple broadcasts possibly affect them? Turner walked over to the main console and plugged in a small device. Because, High Counselor, human culture is like a virus. It gets into your head and changes how you think. Trust me on this one. The screens flickered and changed to show a collection of human media. Reality shows about people living in houses together. Social media feeds full of arguments about trivial things, videos of cats doing strange things, conspiracy theory forums, and philosophical debates about whether we're living in a simulation. We're going to flood their communication networks with all of this, Turner explained. Every channel, every frequency. We're going to introduce them to the beautiful chaos of individual human thought. The plan was so ridiculous that it was approved immediately. They had nothing left to lose. The human fleet, led by Turner's flagship enterprise, he had insisted on the name despite protests from legal departments, approached the collective's advance force. Instead of weapons, their ships carried massive communication arrays loaded with humanity's entire cultural output. Broadcasting now, reported Lieutenant Amy Wong from the communication station. We're hitting them with everything we've got. First, nothing happened. The collective's ships continued their approach, weapons charging. Then, something strange occurred. The perfect formation began to waver. Ships started moving erratically, breaking away from the group. It's working, Turner said quietly. They're experiencing individual thoughts for the first time. On the collective's command ship, chaos reigned. The hive mind, which had existed in perfect harmony for thousands of years, was fragmenting. Different parts of the consciousness were arguing with each other. One segment had become obsessed with a cooking show and was debating the proper way to season food, despite the collective not actually eating in the traditional sense. Another part was deeply invested in a soap opera, wondering if Jennifer would discover that Bob was actually her long-lost twin brother. A third segment had encountered human philosophy and was having an existential crisis, questioning the nature of consciousness itself. Meanwhile, a fourth part had discovered memes and couldn't stop sharing pictures of cats with poorly spelled captions. Sir, Lieutenant Wong reported, we're receiving a transmission from the collective. They're asking us to explain the ending of Inception. Turner laughed. Tell them we're still figuring that out ourselves. The collective fleet had stopped advancing entirely. Some ships were now playing human music at full volume, while others seemed to be attempting to recreate dance moves from viral videos. Two vessels appeared to be having a heated debate about whether pineapple belonged on pizza. 3 days later, the collective formally surrendered. Their message was simple. Please make it stop. We cannot process these conflicting narratives. We wish to return to singular consciousness, but we cannot unhear the debate about whether a hot dog is a sandwich. The victory celebration was unprecedented. Admiral Turner was hailed as a hero across the galaxy, though he insisted he had just done what humans do best, share their weird thoughts with anyone who would listen. But the aftermath brought new challenges. The collective, now calling themselves the individual collective, the irony was not lost on anyone, needed help adjusting to their new state of being. They had millions of bodies, but now thousands of different opinions about everything. Human therapists were brought in to help. Dr. Marcus Powell, a renowned psychiatrist from New York, found himself counseling alien entities about identity crises and the stress of making personal choices. It's fascinating, Powell explained to the Galactic Council. They're experiencing adolescence as an entire species. Imagine going through puberty, but you're several million years old and controlling multiple bodies. The galaxy watched in amazement as the former hive mind learned to function as individuals. They developed art, music, and literature, all heavily influenced by human culture. Their first original creation was a rock opera about the experience of discovering individual consciousness, which became an instant hit across known space. High Counselor Zarthul, called another meeting to discuss the implications of humanity's latest intervention. Once again, he said, humans have solved an impossible problem with an incomprehensible solution. You defeated our greatest enemy by showing them cat videos and reality television. Admiral Turner shrugged. Hey, it worked. Though I should probably mention, we might have created a new problem. The individual collective are now really into social media, and they're creating accounts faster than we can track them. As if on cue, alerts began flashing across the Council's communication systems. The individual collective had discovered online shopping and were bulk ordering everything from fuzzy slippers to philosophical texts about the meaning of life. They're also forming book clubs, Turner added. Lots of them, and they're very passionate about their literary interpretations. The Council members looked at each other with a mixture of relief and concern. They had avoided annihilation, but at what cost? The galaxy's most dangerous threat had been neutralized by transforming them into millions of individuals, with strong opinions about fictional characters. I suppose, Zarthul said slowly, this is still preferable to extinction. Absolutely, Turner agreed. Though you might want to brace yourselves, they're planning their first democratic election next month. Campaign season is going to be interesting. As the meeting adjourned, notification after notification popped up on the Council's screens. The individual collective had discovered online gaming and were challenging other species to multiplayer matches. They had also started a podcast network with approximately 3 million different shows. Humanity had once again proven that their greatest weapon wasn't their technology or their military might. It was their ability to spread chaos so effectively that even a hive mind couldn't handle it. The galaxy was saved, but it would never be the same again. And somewhere in the depths of space, a former collective drone was writing fan fiction about their favorite reality TV stars, perfectly content in their newfound individuality. The Galactic Stock Exchange had never seen anything like it. Numbers flashed red across every screen, and the usually calm trading floor was filled with panicked voices speaking in dozens of languages. The great market crash had begun, and at the center of it all stood Nicole Walsh, wearing a stock market wizard t-shirt and holding a triple espresso. I don't understand what went wrong, she said innocently, watching trillions of credits disappear from the universal economy. I just introduced a few basic Earth concepts, day trading, credit cards, and maybe a tiny bit of cryptocurrency. High economist Threll, a being made of pure mathematical energy, flickered with distress. Your basic concepts have destroyed our carefully balanced system. The market has survived for 50,000 years through rational planning and careful regulation. Walsh shrugged. Yeah, but where's the fun in that? Markets should be exciting. Look, I created an app that lets anyone trade anything with anyone. It's called Galactic Bay. The consequences of human financial innovation spread like wildfire. Species that had never known debt suddenly found themselves maxing out credit cards to buy things they didn't need. The frugal monks of Zentar, who had taken vows of poverty, were now running a successful drop-shipping business selling meditation crystals. Fast food chains popped up on every civilized world. McDonald's Galactic served burgers made from synthetic proteins to species that didn't even have mouths. The chlorophyll collective, a plant-based species, became addicted to French fries, causing a philosophical crisis about consuming their distant cousins. Ambassador Greg Harris sat in the Emergency Economic Summit wearing pajama pants and a formal jacket. He'd forgotten the meeting was video only from the waist up. He listened as species after species described the chaos humans had unleashed. The hive worlds of Bazzara have stopped pollinating because they're too busy checking their investment portfolios, reported one delegate. My people have developed something called retail therapy, said another. We're buying useless items to fill an emotional void we didn't know we had. Harris raised his hand. Okay, I hear you all. The situation is bad, but I have a solution that might sound crazy. The council braced themselves. Human solutions always sounded crazy. What if, Harris continued, we just got rid of money altogether? The mathematical energy being that was high economist Threll nearly short-circuited. Eliminate currency? How would civilization function? Well, you've got replicator technology, right? You can basically create anything from energy. And you've got nearly unlimited energy from all those Dyson spheres. So why are we still pretending things have scarcity value? Harris pulled up a presentation he'd clearly made that morning. The title slide read, Post-Scarcity Economics for Dummies, in Comic Sans font. See, on Earth, we've been dreaming about this for centuries. A society where everyone has what they need, and people work because they want to, not because they have to. You guys already have the technology. You're just stuck in old thinking patterns. The council chamber erupted in debate. Some species were horrified at the idea of abandoning their economic systems. Others were intrigued by the possibility of true abundance. But without money, asked the merchant prince of Vendara, how would we measure success? Harris grinned. That's the beautiful part. You measure it by happiness, creativity, scientific advancement. You know, things that actually matter. Plus, think of all the time you'll save not having to check your bank balance. Over the next month, Harris worked with economists, philosophers, and social scientists from across the galaxy to design a new system. They called it the Universal Basic Everything, UBE, model. Every citizen would have access to replicators for basic needs, free energy allocation, and unrestricted education. Work would become voluntary, driven by passion rather than necessity. The transition was messy, with some species clinging to their old ways, but gradually the new system took hold. The results were immediate and dramatic. Scientific advancement accelerated as researchers no longer had to worry about funding. Art flourished as creators could focus on their work without financial pressure. Even the bureaucratic brotherhood of forms, who had existed solely to process economic paperwork, found new purpose in organizing the galaxy's first universal library. But as always with human solutions, there were unexpected consequences. Hi. Counselor, reported the head of Galactic Security. We have a new problem. With all their basic needs met, humans have an unprecedented amount of free time. Zarthul felt a familiar sense of dread. What are they doing with this time? They're inventing sports that violate several laws of physics. There's something called quantum leapfrog that's causing temporal paradoxes, and zero-G parkour has resulted in 17 diplomatic incidents. Meanwhile, Nicole Walsh had started the galaxy's first post-scarcity cooking show, where contestants competed not for prizes, but for the joy of creating impossible dishes. Her most popular episode featured a dessert that existed in 7 dimensions simultaneously. Ambassador Harris found himself defending humanity yet again before the council. Look, I know the Recreational Asteroid Surfing League has caused some issues with navigation, but you have to admit it's pretty spectacular to watch. High Counselor Zarthul rubbed his temples, a gesture he'd learned from humans. Ambassador Harris, your species has solved our economic crisis by eliminating economics. You've created abundance from chaos. Yet somehow, this solution has led to new forms of chaos we never imagined. That's just how we roll, Harris replied cheerfully. Besides, would you rather go back to the old system? The council unanimously agreed they would not. Despite the challenges, the post-scarcity model had brought more peace and prosperity than the galaxy had ever known. Species that had been rivals for resources now collaborated on art projects and scientific endeavors. The individual collective, still adjusting to their new existence, became passionate advocates for the UBE system. They created a philosophical movement called abundant individualism that spread across the galaxy, teaching beings how to find purpose without economic pressure. Dr. Linda Santos, now running a chain of free science labs called Weird Experiments Welcome, made breakthrough after breakthrough. Her latest project involved teaching bacteria to compose music, resulting in the galaxy's first microbial symphony orchestra. As the galactic civilization adapted to its new reality, High Counselor Zarthul reflected on the human condition. They were agents of chaos, yes, but their chaos had a strange way of pushing everyone forward. They broke systems not out of malice, but out of an irrepressible desire to see what could be better. Perhaps, he mused to his aide, the humans are teaching us that sometimes you have to break something completely to rebuild it properly. His aide, A young Zenthian who had fully embraced human culture responded with finger guns and a wink. "You got it, boss. Now want to grab some coffee? There's a new place that serves it in anti-gravity bubbles." Zarthul sighed. The galaxy would never be orderly again, but maybe that wasn't such a bad thing after all. 5 years had passed since humanity first joined the Galactic Council. The Grand Council chamber gleamed under artificial starlight as representatives from every known species gathered for High Counselor Zarthul's State of the Galaxy address. The chamber looked different now, less formal, more lived in. A coffee machine hummed in the corner, and someone had put up motivational posters with pictures of cats hanging from tree branches. Zarthul stood at the central podium, his ceremonial robes now featuring a small pin that read, "I survived first contact with humans." He cleared his throat, a gesture he'd picked up from human diplomats. "Esteemed colleagues," he began. "Today marks 5 years since humanity joined our galactic community. It has been an experience." Gentle laughter rippled through the chamber. Everyone knew exactly what he meant. "Let us review what has transpired," Zarthul continued. "Humans have solved 3 existential crises: the Void Plague, the Collective War, and the Great Economic Collapse. They have also created approximately 743 new problems, ranging from minor inconveniences to near-catastrophic events." He pulled up a holographic display showing various statistics. "They have introduced concepts such as social media influencers, extreme sports, and reality television to species that previously had no concept of recreational self-destruction. They have taught artificial intelligences to feel anxiety, given sentience to vending machines, and somehow convinced the eternal bureaucrats of Rigel 7 to start a punk rock band." Ambassador Lisa Roberts stood up wearing a formal dress combined with light-up sneakers. "In our defense, that punk band is actually pretty good." "Indeed," Zarthul acknowledged. "Their album Forms in Triplicate has gone platinum across 17 systems. But that is precisely my point. Humans bring chaos, yes, but it is a chaos that creates rather than destroys." The display changed to show before and after images of various galactic civilizations. The Silent Monks of Quietude now hosted the galaxy's largest music festival. The Logic Lords of Pure Reason had developed a passion for improvisational theater. The Hive Worlds of Bizarra had become famous for their honey-based cuisine and reality cooking shows. "We have learned," Zarthul continued, "that humans possess a unique quality. They see possibilities where others see only problems. They ask why not, when everyone else asks why. They turn disasters into opportunities and somehow make the impossible seem inevitable." A notification chimed, interrupting his speech. Zarthul sighed and checked his communicator. "I see that humans have just invented something called interdimensional pizza delivery. Ambassador Roberts, would you care to explain?" Roberts grinned. "It's exactly what it sounds like. We figured out how to deliver fresh pizza across parallel universes. The tech came from trying to solve the problem of cold pizza during long space flights. One thing led to another, and now we can send a pepperoni through the fabric of reality itself." The chamber erupted in a mixture of amazement and exasperation. This was typical human behavior, solving a minor inconvenience with universe-altering technology. "This brings me to our main agenda item," Zarthul announced. "The Council must vote on new regulations regarding human innovations." He displayed a list that included items such as no teaching pets from one world to use technology from another, and limit of 3 reality-bending inventions per solar cycle. Ambassador Roberts raised her hand. "Before we vote, I'd like to present something." She walked to the center of the chamber carrying a small box. "This is our latest project. We call it the Universal Translator 2.0. She opened the box and a swarm of tiny glowing particles flew out, dispersing throughout the chamber. Suddenly every being could understand not just the words, but the emotions, cultural context, and subtle meanings behind everything being said. The effect was immediate. Ancient misunderstandings between species began to resolve. The Crystalline Confederation finally understood why the gas giants of Nebula 9 had been upset about that trade agreement from 3,000 years ago. The warrior races of the Outer Rim realized their battle cries had been accidentally proposing marriage to their enemies for centuries. This, Roberts explained, is what humans do best. We connect things that seem unconnectable. We find common ground where none existed. Yes, we cause chaos, but it's a chaos that brings people together. The vote on human regulations was postponed indefinitely as the council members explored their newfound ability to truly understand each other. Debates turned into conversations, arguments into discussions. For the first time in galactic history, every species could fully appreciate the perspectives of others. Later that day, Zarthul met privately with Ambassador Roberts in his office. The room had changed over the years, now featuring a mini fridge stocked with Earth beverages and a collection of human board games. "You did that on purpose," he said, not accusingly, but with admiration. "You knew the translator would change how we view regulations." Roberts smiled. "Maybe. Or maybe it was just another happy accident. That's the thing about humans. Even we don't always know if we're being brilliant or just lucky." A alert flashed on Zarthul's desk. "It seems your pizza delivery system has already created an interdimensional trade network. 3 parallel universes are now exchanging recipes." "Oops," Roberts offered with a shrug. Zarthul laughed, a sound that would have been unthinkable 5 years ago. "This is what I have learned about your species. You are impossible to contain, difficult to predict, and absolutely essential to our future. You are simultaneously our greatest challenge and our most valuable allies." The Council ultimately passed only one regulation regarding humans. Proceed with caution, but definitely proceed. It became the official motto of human-alien relations. The years passed. The galaxy continued to evolve under human influence. Art, science, and culture flourished in ways no one could have predicted. Problems were solved with solutions that created new problems, which led to even more creative solutions. It was messy, chaotic, and absolutely wonderful. The Galactic Archives recorded this era as the human influence period, noting that while other species had contributed great things to galactic civilization, only humans had fundamentally changed what it meant to be civilized. They taught the galaxy to embrace imperfection, to find joy in chaos, and to never stop asking, what if? In the end, the Council's conclusion was simple. Humans were indeed both the best and worst allies they could have asked for. They brought problems no one else could imagine and solved them with methods no one else would dare try. They were chaos incarnate, but it was a chaos that made the universe a more interesting place to live. And somewhere in a parallel dimension, a very confused alien was trying to figure out why someone had just delivered a pineapple pizza through a quantum portal, while in another universe, beings were debating whether interdimensional pizza delivery violated the laws of causality. The galaxy had learned to stop worrying and love the human condition. After all, in a universe full of order and logic, sometimes you need a species crazy enough to ask, but what if we tried delivering pizza through the space-time continuum? The adventure was just beginning.